Hi, Kiko.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hey, well, thanks a lot, Chris, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Oh, are you kidding me, dude? Thank you so much. This is
I've been
awesome.
I've been laughing about the most unholiest Bible thing for
King James is the least holy Bible, dude. It is. It is. It was written by a blasphemous man. No, yeah, that's so funny.
yeah, that was and then his face when they do what they do on the bus, he just looks so the next
He's
scene he
like,
looks just so like just disappointed in himself.
oh, dude. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad you feel that way.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about where this story came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wrote the screenplay in 2021. It was the first screenplay I ever wrote, and I was in my master's at USC, and at USC, our kind of like alumni that everyone looks up to is like Ryan Coogler, like, and so
Mhm.
anything that he did while he was at USC gets like passed down to like, Ryan Coogler did this, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do that. So I was told Ryan Coogler had 5 first drafts done by the time he graduated from USC's MFA. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do 5 first drafts. I only got through 3 because I'm not prolific like that. So, but Lemonade was the first one I wrote, and I wrote it by I jotted down like feelings and memories from my adolescence.
Mhm.
I noticed commonalities between those things, and I just started threading them together. I noticed I had like a bit of an A and a B and a C plot, and I wrote it out of order according to like if I wanted to write a funny scene or a dramatic scene one day, I would just write that, and I winnowed it down, fictionalized it, stitched some things together, and that's kind of how the first draft came about. I shelved it for 2 years, and then in the beginning of 2023, I was in my last year of USC, and I was like, okay, USC is kind of advocating for kids to do thesis films, but it doesn't make sense to me to put all my money into a short film if I want to make features. So I'm going to skip the thesis film. I'm going to produce thesis films instead so I can learn how to make more films from a logistical standpoint. And then I'm going to prep a feature while I'm in my last year. So I started prepping Lemonade after rewriting it. And I gave it to a really good friend of mine, my roommate, Abby, who's also editor on this film. And he was reading, he was just like, dude, I think this is it. I think you should do this. And it gave me so much. It was so hardening. It gave me so much energy, and I think that was the first push I needed. So yeah, I started prepping it. I drove out to from LA to New York in January and started living in my dad's place while I prepped it. And yeah, man, we just did it. We got the people, we raised the money, we started the LLC, we got the SAG signatory and did the tax credit application, and
Yeah.
yeah, we just did it.
Was anybody doing it like that? Like just skipping over what was technically the next step?
I would say honestly, no. No, I think most of my classmates really wanted to stand out within USC's ecosystem, and
Mhm.
USC is a very big budget filmmaking school, so they really want you to be a kind of Ryan Johnson type, and they're very, very restrictive, I think, on what it is that they think a good story should be. And I really was not a huge fan of the curation that was going on, where certain students would get picked to make certain films. And I feel like all of my favorite friends who had the most things to say, the international students, the really, really cool people with unique perspectives, because they didn't like embody a really Western lens, they were getting kind of passed over. And I really just didn't really respect a lot of the curation in that regard. And so I thought that I
Mhm.
would try and transcend it by doing something different outside of the school while trying to use all the connections that the school provide to bring people on. My producer, 2 of my editors, my supervising sound editor, they're all my close friends from USC. So I definitely benefited from the Trojan Mafia. There's no doubt. But yeah, I thought it was just important to try and like, I don't know, forge our own path in that way.
Yeah. How old are you? Can I ask your age?
I'm 27.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that some of these stories or these things that happened to Ryan's character, they happened to you? You're in school like this?
Yeah, this story is very, very close to my heart. It's obviously not like a true story based on a true story, but I would hope that anyone who watches the film can recognize that it comes from a really honest place
Hmm.
without me having to literally like litigate, like, this is true, that's false, this is true, that's false. Because I do think that wouldn't exactly be respecting the privacy of certain people and institutions, but
Right.
the story is really personal to me, is what I'll say. Yeah.
So what do you say when people look at this story and like, wow, you really had a an interesting experience going through private school like this? What can you tell them specifically that you felt going through something like that?
I would say that seems to me like Catholic high schools are in some sense running baby breeding factories where they're trying to get you to focus on marriage and procreation so that you generate more customers for the business model. And so that's a huge part of the film. Anytime a teacher talks to a student in this movie, they're telling them how to be chivalrous, how to deal with the opposite sex, ultimately, so that they can literally marry them, breed with them, and then bring more kids to the school. And I feel like there was a very big aspect of that in my upbringing and in my experience in Catholic high school. Like at my school, a lot of ex-students would become teachers, and a lot of, in my mind, really harmful messaging was passed down to us. That took a really long time for me to decode and parse out and separate myself from. So this movie is kind of just my attempt to reckon with those things and yeah, process them in a way that I hope is maybe engaging or hope people could feel seen when they watch it, you know.
Yeah. I'm not religious myself, so none of what you show bothers me bothers
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I
Bothers
mean
me
it
at all.
doesn't bother me either, but I think for some it does, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was wondering, like, if somebody watches this and is, calls it blasphemous or something like that, is that something that you would carry with pride, or would you try to talk to somebody like that, or how does that work in your mind?
It's not my intention to upset people needlessly. I do think that the sacrilegious dares in the film, I mean, I had to have this conversation with my mom, right? Because we shot at her house. She's very devout. She was very upset with some of the stuff in the film. The way I say it is like films are ultimately dramatic vehicles. So, in order to have a story be maximally effective, you need to have externalization of internal conflict. A lot of movies have a theme of sexual guilt. But what I wanted to do with this film was find a way to find an external object, a series of measurable goals that would make the protagonist increasingly uncomfortable,
Hmm.
which could be mapped onto the guilt he's feeling about his increasing sexual congress with his partner. And so I would not have done this needlessly just to thumb my nose at the faith. I see this film as one that's about childhood development. What is Lilith really doing but becoming the exact opposite of her upbringing, which is a very common thing that kids do. They either completely embody their upbringing or they react completely against it when they're young. They don't realize that there's a third option, which is to take what you like and leave the rest. Young kids just don't realize that, you know? So I personally, I don't lose sleep over the sacrilegious dares, but I was aware of the fact that it would make some people uncomfortable.
What was the moment that you realized that you wanted to leave it behind? As you,
Oh, do you mean like things from the childhood to leave behind?
no, no, things from going to church or any of the faith based stuff that you were brought up on.
I really just got a different worldview. I read too much about the way that the human mind works and became convinced that most of my experiences and religious experiences and the way that it all operates is something that could be explained in terms of the material, you know? Like I believe that we're biological, we're animals, and like every answer that I wanted to find, even though there was a more beautiful answer to be found in the faith, I found that there's a more truthful answer to be found in a biological or a chemical understanding. I had had like an experience where I was having a falling out in the faith because like I was having some fights with my mom about my way of interpreting the faith versus hers. And I was experiencing a real crisis of faith. I was about 20. So I started reading more. I just started reading. I started a habit that I still have, which is I read like about 75 pages a day of either prose or nonfiction. And the more I learned, the more inescapable it seemed to me that, for better or worse, we're material creatures. We're not. The mind is the soul. You know what I mean? There's not this dualism where we are separated from our bodies. And so yeah, it's for me, it's literally just a statement of truth. It's just what I believe, what I've discovered. I think.
Is this a bittersweet moment for your mother? I mean, I'm sure she's proud of you as a filmmaker, and you're setting off into this industry that you want. But at the same time, you told me that she was a little unhappy with some of the things. So has she seen the final version of the film, and what was her overall take of it?
She has seen it, and one thing I think is so beautiful is she wanted to only see the final cut of the film. She didn't want to read the script, and that's probably why this was tough. Is because I said in a very vague way that there are sacrilegious elements in the film, but I don't think she had fully reckoned with what that would be until we were in her house shooting. I actually had to move. I had to leave her house and shoot at my dad's house on the final day because just the elements were getting too much for her. So what I would say is it's a process. We've had a lot of conversations. I love my mom. She loves me. And, at first when she watched the movie, she's like, there's a lot of pain in this movie. There's a lot of broken people in this movie. And she liked a lot of it, and there's aspects of it she really didn't like. But one thing that I really hold on to is that she really liked the character of Mary. She felt like that was a good character. And that's really important to me because I really want to render that character such a way that a devout mother could watch that and feel like, no, that wasn't an unfair depiction of someone with this worldview. And I think, my grandma watched it afterwards, and my grandma actually really liked it. And I think that actually softened my mom's opinion of it because now my mom's going to the premiere, whereas previously she was maybe gonna just go red carpet and skip it, but she's gonna watch it now. And I think it's gonna be an ongoing process. It's nothing in life is set in stone, and I think it's just gonna be a conversation that we have as we move forward, as the film moves forward.
How did you decide on Jake for this role of John, and how similar were you as a kid to him? I don't know where you first saw him, whether it was like eighth grade
It
or
was
you
eighth grade,
seeing
yeah.
them. Yeah. So what was it about him?
He is so good at self-disclosing in a way that's like vulnerable, endearing, neurotic, fast-paced. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, like I talk fast, I think fast, I'm neurotic, and it was so important to me that we had like New York type people in this movie, the cadence, the speed. So yeah, Jake brought a lot of himself to the role, but I think we have a lot of overlap in our personalities. And so, yeah, I saw him in eighth grade in 2018. His photo was in the pitch deck for this thing. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty apparent. And yeah, his chemistry with Sky was outstanding. It was one of the most affirming moments. It was so exciting. There's so much potential in the air. I'm like, I cannot wait for these two to be making this movie together. And yeah, all of my hopes were confirmed.
Yeah, I saw him in eighth grade first too, but then I was going through his filmography and I didn't realize he was in Inside Llewyn Davis, and then I thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, he was a kid in
Did
that.
you know? Did you know? Inside Llewyn Davis, him and Janine are playing mother and son in that movie.
That's awesome. I didn't even
So
know.
crazy, so
That's
crazy. That was blew my mind. Me and my producer Roz were freaking out. We're like, us and the Cohen brothers have the same opinion. Oh my god, like, yeah,
And then of course Chad. I mean, he's great in Chad too. And I that's why I don't watch TV, because TV breaks your heart when they don't come back with the next season, right? I don't know if you saw
yeah.
Chad, but yeah.
I saw clips of him in it.
Right,
He's
right.
so great. He's
Yeah,
so
he's
sincere.
really, yeah, that's a perfect word for him. Perfect word for him. So just overall, like when somebody comes out of this movie, when they come out of the premiere, what do you hope that they take from your movie? Do you have a message?
You know, I want people to have their own experience with it, but I will say that I intentionally contextualize the story with a beginning and ending of a childhood memory because I'm trying to make people think about the ways in which early childhood experiences affect who we become as we come of age, and also like how romance and strong like erotic attraction towards another is often a result of lack. We want for ourselves what we lack, and so we're attracted to others who have what we lack. And oftentimes, what we lack is a result of what we were deprived as children or what we had too much of as children. So all these things were kind of on my mind. And so I hope that people can maybe think about their relationship with their own parents, or they can reflect on their first love and maybe learn something about themselves by reflecting on their own upbringing.
And I'll make this my last question, but I'm always interested in when I speak to younger filmmakers. You're about 20 years younger than I am. So what's your
Oh, wow.
earliest movie? What's your earliest movie memory?
Oh, wow. Oh, this is really interesting. Okay, you know what's really weird is I'm like I this is such a weird one, but do you know that 1985 Godzilla, the Godzilla movie? Was it the 80s that no, not Godzilla, I'm sorry, King Kong, the 1985 King Kong movie?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I remember watching that with my parents, and I was laying on the couch, and there was a scene where I think like the female lead had just like she just escaped Godzilla, and she's like hugging the male lead, and like she was showing like side boob in the scene, like her clothes were falling off, and I remember sitting there silently being like, oh my god, like I hope my parents don't notice that she's showing side boob, which is like a crazy thought because they obviously must have noticed it, just didn't want to confront anything about sex or sexuality with me. But I remember just being 5 years old and thinking that, just being like, oh man, I hope nobody talks about this, and then nobody talked about it. That is probably my earliest movie memory, I think.
That's interesting. So were you more interested in the monster or the the side boob as a kid? That's
I guess both. No, I was definitely just like, whoa, that's crazy. I was like, this is like, I literally had the thought, I was like, did the filmmakers know that she's almost naked right now? Like, did they know that they did that? That's crazy. Like, I was just so innocent. I was just so silly.
that's funny. That's great. 1976, I think, is the one you're talking about.
Oh,
Is
76. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Jessica Lange. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Again, congratulations on the film, and looking for. I mean, I'm sure you're excited about Tribeca. That's amazing that you're able to get into that festival. So congratulations, man.
Well, dude, I can't believe it. And thank you so much for stopping to chat. This was so awesome. Thanks
All
for
right.
your questions.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.